Arsenal. My name is Jessica. I'm your host. You can follow me on Twitter at Jessino Tweets and at SheKnowsArsenal. Probably have to take that out later, but I don't care because you know what? Today is a big day, I feel like, for the Arsenal fan base. I think a lot of stress and anxiety has been lifted off of the back of Saliba's interview with Telefoot. Yesterday, it might have been yesterday, that the news had kind of come out that he was going to do this interview. And I was like, okay, what is this going to be about? And obviously, like with Saliba, my whole thing has kind of been like, I just, I like the player so much. And I've always liked him since like the moment we signed him, that like the idea that he wouldn't ever play for Arsenal was kind of heartbreaking. And so I had started to practice detachment and not try to like stress out as much about it. But that interview, like the moment that they were talking about that interview, I was like, okay, this could be it. He's either going to say that he's going to come back to Arsenal or he's going to Lukaku us, like literally. And so I thought, honestly, it could have went either way. But, you know, for me, I was hoping for the best and preparing for the worst. And to wake up this morning and to see, you know, Saliba kind of speak, not really, I wouldn't say with like a lot of fondness, but just at least confirm that he's going to come back to Arsenal for preseason and and kind of fight for his position, if you will. So I will read the quotes to you guys. I'm sure that you've seen most of them, but I will read them to you anyway. Make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel. There's about 120 of you guys in here, so make sure you guys do that. He basically talked about how his season was really positive with Marseille. I think, you know, he was felt really good about what Marseille was able to accomplish this season, and he was a big part of that. Saliba says he went to another level. Didier Deschamps says he's a real defender. He's calm and really mature. Saliba also spoke about how it's a dream to play for France. And I guess like the most important part of this is when he said, "I'm still at Arsenal, but I want to show them what player I am. I don't want to just leave like that." That's all he said, but you know, and then Telefoot tried to say he could stay at Marseille, Arsenal, or neither of them, which I feel like his words were pretty clear there that he's going to come back to Arsenal. And so with Arteta kind of coming out on the club side of things and saying that he's going to come back, and then Saliba also saying it, you know, I think that at least gives us a good opportunity to see him in preseason. He says, "I belong to Arsenal. I still have 2 years left. I will be back with Arsenal. I've played 0 matches and I still want to show them my true face and have the chance to play for these fans and this great club." So, I mean, that's as good as you can possibly get, you know, when it comes to, you know, what Saliba can and cannot say at this point. I also think it's important that we remember that the World Cup is around the corner, and I'm sure he'll want some assurances on his playing time, because being in the French national team is a dream for a young defender like William Saliba. And so if you even see like Konate wasn't even brought in until Varane got injured, and he's playing for Liverpool and he's done very, very well. So, you know, I think with Saliba at the back of his mind, he's going to be thinking about how he's going to sustain that position while being at Arsenal, where maybe his starting position is not necessarily guaranteed. So for me, it's a scenario where if he's willing to fight for his position, then that's great. But I'm sure he's also going to want some assurances on playing time and things like that. I know Didier Deschamps, for him to be choosing William Saliba over somebody like Konate, that's important. You know, I think that's significant because we know that France basically manufactures like very good center backs. So Saliba having that opportunity, he's not going to want to give that up. So hopefully Arteta will give him his chance. And ideally, you know, I wouldn't this is from my perspective, and obviously I'm not the manager, so it's not really up to me. But it would be nice to see him be rotated with Gabriel and White in the Premier League and not just be a cup defender. I don't think that's going to be enough for him, to make that World Cup squad. But also, like, I think he's good enough to start in the Premier League now. I do think that he's still new and he'll have to adjust to the physicality and the speed, but he has all the tools in which to do so. So I would like to see some rotation between the three. But in its entirety, like, just this interview and the fact that he said that he's going to come back and he's going to be there for preseason, that's really, really, really positive. And so I for one am like, oh yes, Saliba, Gabriel, Ben White. That's a great, core of really good young center backs. And honestly, like, Arsenal haven't had that in ever. We haven't had like a good core since like the early 2000s, when you had like Kolo Toure and you know, Sol Campbell was still there, and Martin Keown was still there. Like, we haven't really had that in a long time. So having this for me is like really building from the back and having like that real foundation that we've needed for so long. So hopefully we can do something like the way that City does it with Stones, Laporte, and Ruben Diaz, and switch them around so he gets enough playing time in the Premier League. He also maybe gets, the cup competitions as his competition, and we see what happens, So I'm really happy about this. And I like just waking up to that news was like, thank God he didn't Lukaku us, because I was thinking like, please don't do us dirty, man. Please don't. If you're not going to want to stay, just say it in quiet. Like, don't do us like this. Mark Sweet says, I still don't see Saliba playing for us next season. I don't think he'll sign an extension to his contract and they will sell him using that as the excuse. Well, there is still the, conversation around the extension and things like that. So I think with assurances on playing time, you can get him to sign. And if you give him money. So there you go. But I this is a really good first step that he actually does want to play for Arsenal and does want to come back. So for me, it's one of those where I'm gonna kind of err on the side of positivity versus like really kind of leaning into he's not going to want to sign. I mean, there was a lot of people saying he wouldn't even want to come back. So this was a big step for me to start to feel like Saliba would play for us next season. Tony says it's amazing what the news is once Saliba got out of the OM French media umbrella. Yeah, I mean, we know how GFFN works, and they've never really had a positive outlook on Arsenal. I don't know if it's because Arsenal has always been a really big the old saying that Arsenal is the biggest club in France. And so, having such great French talent come through Arsenal, and Arsenal being recognized for that and not necessarily any French teams, maybe that had something to do with it, but they just don't like us that much. Like the way that they spin certain quotes and things like that in order to make Arsenal look a certain way is not great. So, hearing it from his mouth is a good thing. There's still the extension and stuff that has to get done, but like, this is a really good first step. Lynn says Saliba has proved everyone wrong. Let's now hope he can do it in the Premier League. Richie Rabbit says, at last someone is committed to Arsenal this year. Makes me feel more optimistic about getting Jesus, Tielemans, etc. Keenan says, feels like a new signing. He is the future of the French national team defense. Would have been a big loss. Let's see. AFC Cape Town says Konate only played 26 games for Liverpool, 11 Premier League starts. Yeah, no, I get that. But Konate is very, very good, and playing for Liverpool is no joke. Playing for Liverpool in the Champions League final is no joke. So I get what you're trying to say, but like the fact that Konate is not getting in this team over William Saliba, I think speaks to his level. Because Marseille, as good as they've done, they were in the Europa, weren't they in the Europa Conference League? I think that's really different than being in the Champions League with Liverpool and actually starting for them in a lot of games, or a significant amount of games. I mean, all of like the cup games were Konate's games. He played a lot. So yeah. Um, Tony says, I agree. I would like close to even minutes across all comps for our top three center backs. And Josh, I've never seen you excited before, ever in the chat, ever. So that's good. But yeah, I would love to see like some sort of like rotation between the three of them. I think that would be ideal, especially because Saliba can play on both sides. I really am not interested in seeing like a left-sided center back come in. I know that Arteta wants that, and that would complete, his life to have another left-sided center back so he can have that balance on both sides. But I don't think we need to put any resources into that position. Just give Saliba all the minutes and just call it a day. CC says competition for places. Finally, now the players will have to up their game. Do you guys think that Gabriel and Ben White might have played better towards because from January on, I do feel like there was enough instances where if maybe you had another really good center back, you could have made a case for them starting over Ben White or Gabriel. More Ben White than Gabriel, I would say, because I think Gabriel had a better season than Ben White. But do you think that having somebody like Saliba behind them would have made them have to up their game at the end of the season instead of that drop off? Albeit there were some injuries involved, but those were at the very tail end. I'm talking about from City on, there were some instances where it was okay, do you think if you had Saliba, there would have been a good case to play him instead of them? Let's see. Diallo says people really think that Arteta will spend 50 million on his center back and still bench him for a 20-year-old unproven in the league. Shaking my head. I have a community poll going on right now. This isn't necessarily what you think will happen, but what would be your ideal center back pairing next season? Now, this is not based on toxicity or anything like that. I do feel like there's a little bit of there's a misconception that comparing center backs is bad. Comparing center backs is not bad. Pinning them against each other, in order to push your narrative or agenda, I think that's what's toxic. So us kind of talking about who we'd like to see partner each other, on the first day of next season, is not toxic, really. So have fun with it. It's really not that big of a deal. We're not picking the team, but I'd like to see what you guys think about that. I'm actually going to check the results right now. Oh, wow. 54% say Saliba and Gabriel. I'm not really that surprised by that. I think that Ben White still divides opinion, and some people don't really like Ben White. So I'm not really surprised that it would be Saliba plus Gabriel, which is fine if that's what you want to see. Zach 10 says, question, doesn't Arteta like a settled defense? I'm thinking White Gabriel partnership as first choice with Saliba next man up ahead of Holdini. Well, if you go back to the season prior, not this season where we only had one competition really to fight for, but before that, he did rotate Pablo Marie and Gabriel quite often. He really did. There were some moments where I think he actually maybe preferred Pablo Marie to Gabriel in some instances. So I think when he had more competitions to think about and he had to rotate more, he did do more rotation. I remember we played a game in the Europa League. And then I think we played early the next week. I may be getting it wrong, but we played Leicester after we played in the Europa League. And that lineup had Willian, Pepe in it. And then it had Pablo Marie in it, but Gabriel had played in the Europa League. So It may be a little bit of that. And maybe Saliba is the Europa League defender, or center back. But he did rotate Gabriel and Papa Marie in Premier League games as well. So when he had more competitions, he did rotate more. When he had less, he kept the starting 11 more settled. So it just depends. I think on how, close he thinks Saliba actually is. But if Arteta wants him to sign a new deal, he's going to have to guarantee him some playing time. Like, he's not Rob Holding, he's not some, guy that's just going to be happy to just be there. Saliba's probably going to need a pay bump and guaranteed minutes in some capacity. So we'll see what happens with that. Lynn says, all according to the team we are playing, because I think however good Saliba is, he still needs time to settle in. And, I think that's I think that's a good thing, is that we have two center backs that we actually like. Well, I like White and Gabrielle. I think they did just fine up until the point where things got really kind of like more, I wouldn't say serious, but like Gabrielle had a very good second season, I thought, and White had a mixed first season, but I saw enough to feel like it's a good signing. So I feel confident with the two of them starting and Saliba being eased in. The last couple of signings that we've had, like if you look at Tomiyasu and Thomas Partey in particular, when we brought them in, they came like straight off the plane and into the first 11 with a lot of pressure on them because they were the best and only thing that we could actually put in that position. So having Saliba being able to be, eased in is good, but he has to have a certain amount of playing time before the World Cup so he can make that squad. Not that Arteta needs to be thinking about that, but that's just the facts. Like, he's going to want to make that squad. Nico says this is the best signing of the transfer window. I think it's up there. I think it's up there for sure. It does go back to us saying that we need quality and depth, like mixed together, and Saliba is quality depth option. Also, like, could start for us, right? Khalid says Ben White is good. Really don't agree with you. Is good. Really don't agree with you. His long balls are good and his ball carrying. Well, I said Ben White is good. So I don't know. Maybe I didn't say it right, but you guys know I love Ben White, So I do think he had a mixed season, though. Like, I do think that there were some games where he made some mistakes that were like, okay, those need to go away. But all in all, I thought Ben White was a very good signing. So yeah, don't know where you got that from, but there you go. Let's see. I also kind of like that, Saliba and Gabrielle at least speak the same language. I do have questions around like whether or not Saliba not speaking English might be something that keeps him out of the starting lineup for just a little bit. I don't know where his English is at, but I'm pretty sure that like while he was in France, like all he was doing was speaking French, if you know what I mean. So at least Gabrielle can speak French because, he was at Lille for like 2 or 3 years. So them two being able to speak together might be, speak to each other is good. I don't think it's like something that has to happen, but like he has to be able to speak like really fluent English to even be out there on the pitch. But I think it would help him. Martin says White stats are above Gabrielle, so clearly people have agendas to want Saliba Gabrielle partnership. You know what? I'm not going to say like I do think that some of it is agenda driven. We know how Saliba has kind of been used as a stick to beat Arteta with. And then there's that part of the fan base, and then there's also a section that's just like really loves Saliba so much that signing Ben White felt like almost like a slap in the face to Saliba. So there's like a couple of different things there. And then there's probably just some people that just really are excited to see Saliba. For me, we just have to wait and see, but I don't really care. To be honest, I think they're all so good. Tony says, question, who's the best looking center back? Ben White has the bad boy vibes. Gabrielle, he has good hair, is fine. Saliba has a great facial structure, off-season questions. I will not be answering that question, but what I will say is that, like, I'm just happy that they're all here and they all seem like nice young men. So, yeah, I will not be answering that question. Um, let's see. Lynn says, I love Ben White, but looked better at Brighton. He doesn't quite look so good for us. Um, I think also, like, it just depends on what your type of center back is. Ben White is a good footballer. Like, I think he's gonna be kinda similar to, like, what Gabriel Jesus is. Very good footballer, but in the sense of, like, the traditional, definition of the position that they're playing in, they probably don't hit that, like, perfectly. So, Ben White is somebody that we know could probably play right back, can play center back. If you stuck him in DM, he might be able to do something because he's just a good footballer in terms of, you know, footballing IQ, passing ability, the ability to dribble out of the back, those types of things. But in terms of like center back, like what you want to see is somebody like, what we're used to seeing. Like Gabriel is like the traditional center back, a real center back. Ben White is a little bit more of just a really good footballer that just happens to play center back. So I think it's a little bit of that. But I thought Ben White and Gabrielle, the partnership looked really good for a large part of last season. I think also like we had a lot of questions around Gabrielle after his first season. I remember there was a lot of like, is he actually that good? And this season, he really proved it. I would say if Ben White and Ramsdale can have the type of improvement that Gabrielle did from season 1 to season 2, we won't have as many questions about them. Let's see. Let's see. Antonio says, unpopular opinion, Gabrielle is a better ball playing center back than Ben White. Okay, so if you go look at his compilation, his season review, let me find it for you guys. I almost posted it too, but then I forgot. Gabrielle season review. So many Gabrielles, it's ridiculous. Here it is. I think it's by Gunner TV. I'm going to copy the link here and post it for you guys. So if you look at it and you watch it, the amount of times that like Gabrielle's ball playing has gotten so much better this season. And this is why like early, like when we like were voting for like most improved player, I put Gabrielle in there. And I did that like kind of during his time where he wasn't playing as good, but like, bad form is not going to make me think that he actually didn't improve. Like the guy's ball playing ability actually got a lot better. His balls in between the lines were actually really good, and some of his switches were very good. So I don't know if he's a better ball playing center back than Ben White. I still think Ben White is probably just like a little bit better than him, but Gabrielle has improved so much on that. I just posted it in the chat box. Don't leave here and go watch it yet, but just copy it for yourselves. So yeah. Some of you guys are saying Saliba is best looking. You guys are funny. I'll never answer that question. High Tech J says, Ben White looks class for us. I'm so confused. He's basically Stones 2.0. I don't know. I just think there's a lot involved in it that makes people not think Ben White is good. And some people, I think it's also okay for you not to rate certain players. Like, I do think that we don't all have to sing from the same hymn sheet. Like, there's been players over the years that some people liked more than others. Some people rate more than others. I think in general, it's cool, especially if it's not based on an agenda and it's just your footballing opinion. Fair enough. I don't really feel like it's that deep. Keenan says White is still developing, had to adjust last season to a back four. We're going to see the CB core of White, Gabrielle, and Saliba take their games to another level over the next couple of seasons. So, yeah, I'm ecstatic. You guys, I am ecstatic. Like, I just feel like we moved in the right direction towards Saliba playing games for Arsenal next season. Um, yeah, like I just think like it's just the best news. AFC Cape Town says this is hatred, not rating. Okay. Arun says White is miles ahead. His decision making and passing is elite. I think it's perfectly healthy for us to compare our center backs. Like, if you think that Gabrielle's better than White or White's better than Saliba or whatever, like that's fine. And I think once we get into that weird zone of like any sort of comparison is toxic, then you taking the fun out of football because that's what it's all about. You know what I mean? It's just when it's driven by agenda, right? So yeah, um, just soccer or football, whatever you guys want to call it, is just opinions. Like grown men running on grass kicking a ball. Fair enough. So that's where we'll end that part. Let's talk about the scam. There's almost 300 of you guys in here. Like the video, subscribe to the channel so we can talk about the scam. That's what I'm calling it from here on out, guys. Like, there's just nothing about this link to Gianluca Scamacca that makes me feel like he's going to come to Arsenal or that it's ever going to happen. So basically, the word on the street is that for months, Inter have been following Gianluca Scamacca. Milan are also interested, but both Milani's clubs have been told they'll need 40 million to secure the player. Scamacca has overseas admirers too, with Arsenal very interested. There was also kind of like the report that had come out from Get Italian Football, like so the Italian version of GFFN, that was saying that like he's almost instantly rejected it because sorry, I had to do it like that. Instantly rejected it because he wants to wait for one of the big Italian clubs to come get him. Arsenal have made an important offer of 35 million euros for Scamacca. Sassuolo would like 40 million plus bonuses. Talks are ongoing. Negotiations with Inter are on hold, and that is coming from Daniele Longo. We've seen this story before. We've seen it before. It's a scam. Scam. Okay, so here you go. Like with Scamacca, like let's just talk about the player. I think he's really good. Like I do. I think he's really good. Kind of still not like I don't think he's at the level of Vlahovic. I think Vlahovic was maybe like a year ahead of him in terms of his development. But this is a good player that could improve us, that would fill that void that like a lot of Arsenal fans feel like we need to fill in terms of like a tall, physical target man striker. The thing I like about Scamacca is that has a little bit of finesse about him. Like he obviously has a nice touch, you know, he can hold up the ball and find his teammates, and his ball striking ability is something that we surely lack in this side. Beyond ESR, I don't think we have great ball strikers, you know, whatever you want to call it. But like these players don't leave Italy. And I feel like they get tapped up early, you know. I think any sort of decent talent that's coming through the Italy ranks, like the big clubs tap them up and say, just wait, just wait. We'll come and get you. Don't leave. Just come, just stay. Don't leave. And whether that's in the next 1 or 2 years, like those players will wait around for those big moves to the likes of Inter Milan and Juventus, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm not quite sure if this is something that we can get done. You know, I really don't know because they just don't leave. They just will not leave. And so, yeah, I mean, he also rejected Dortmund, you know, so I don't really take this rejection as like, oh my gosh, we've been rejected. It's just more like these players don't leave. And so I don't know. It does kind of, like Blaze says, remind me of Locatelli. where we'll offer something and then Juventus or Inter Milan will come in with some 10, a 2-year loan with a 10 million euro obligation to buy in those 2 years, and they'll take it. I think they're just trying to get one of these bigger teams to bite. The fact that they even mention into the Inter talks are on standby. Just I also I think that just speaks to Inter want to have all of the strikers that they could potentially have kind of there within their grasp, and so they can pick and choose. And then if they don't choose him, they'll just put him back on the shelf. Inter look to be trying to negotiate some sort of $20 million, 20 million pound loan fee for Lukaku with some sort of option for 65 million to buy. So I think their priority is Lukaku, but also Spurs want Lukaku and they have the money to buy him. So I think a lot of whether or not he goes, Scamacca goes, is going to be based around what happens with Lukaku. I think Lukaku is going to go back to Inter. So maybe they don't get Scamacca, but then there's also Juventus who will tap him up and say, "We'll come and get you next season. Don't worry." So this is not something that I can see coming to fruition. And also you could say, players, you won't negotiate the fee with the club unless have, that the player will come. I think Vlahovic also gave flirty eyes to us. Scamacca might do the same thing and be like, well, what could I get there? But all of it would just be to kind of force Inter or somebody to act, so I don't really see it coming to fruition, but nevertheless, I think this is a good player and this type of profile would be something that the fan base would welcome. But yeah, he ain't coming. Yeah, so Ivy says, I like the scams all around play. He presses, has decent vision with the ball, scores goals. What else do you want from a striker? The only issue is he won't leave for England. Denzel says these players in Italy can't handle the Premier League. Do you think it's they can't handle it, or they just do you think that even maybe the Italian setup, basically tells them if you leave, you won't make the team? I could easily see something like that. They're like, well, you have a better chance of actually making the Italian national team if you actually stay in Italy so that they can keep the talent there. I know that Jorginho is in, England, but he's desperate to go back. So I don't think that that's any sort of well, Italian players do come, they really don't. And I wonder if it's the national team setup kind of makes it hey, if you want to be on the team, you have to be at one of the big Italian clubs. You know what I mean? So yeah. But yeah, we're basically only talking about the Italian players. So I get Vlahovic is not Italian, but also players that tend to be there from the beginning of their careers don't leave. So you look at somebody like Dybala, he has not left, and he's Argentinian, So I get what people, oh, well, Vlahovic is not Italian. That still does not change the fact that Italian players are not coming. They're not leaving Italy. So there you go. High Tech J says the only nationality of players from the top 5 leagues who consistently leave their league is the French. CC says encourages them to play in the Italian league. French should probably do the same with their players. I mean, we've had kind of a smaller conversation around that, but yeah, we've had kind of a conversation around that. PSG should definitely be trying to monopolize the French talent, and not just let them leave their academies and go be great other places and buy foreign players. It'll probably be great. Let's see. Okay, so Dybala is ethnically Italian. You guys know what I'm saying. Italian players don't leave the league. Let's not get like bogged down in the details and all this kind of stuff. Italian players don't leave the league, and most players that play there don't leave there. Like, you know what I mean? So let's not get bogged down in it. Um, Grace says Italians play with extreme positional discipline, whereas in England, we are a bit more wild. The way we are both brought up to play in both countries are different, so they generally don't fit here. Um, Fairs. Keenan says, in Serie A, you have a lot more time on the ball. The pace of the Prem can shut down strikers that need more time to create the chance. Yeah, fair enough. So yeah, I get what you guys are trying to say. There's the odd options or the odd player here and there that leaves, but the majority don't, and those are the facts. So you can pull little examples here and there, but like they don't leave. Khalid says, I think it's because the Italian league makes their players look better, and even though it's not levels, it still has the hype, so players stay. Fairs. I do think that like you think it's also like it's just a better place to be? Like, no offense, but like the food, the weather, like, could it have something to do with that? Because some of the stadiums that they play at, like when they pan across, I'm like, that's beautiful. That's freaking beautiful. Like, you know what I mean? It could just be a little bit of that too. Like, it's just a nice place to be. Or am I wrong? Do you guys think it's not like that? So yeah, I think the scam is not coming. So it's a scam. But let's keep going past the scam. That's all we're calling him from here on out, by the way, you guys. Nothing more. So Bissouma wants to come to Arsenal. I just wanted to touch on this because I think this is so interesting. But I actually checked myself. This was actually on Bissouma's like official account. And this was his stories. And basically, let me blow this up for myself. It says, this is coming from an Arsenal fan account. In today's AFCON qualifiers, Bissouma gave 2 assists with a heart. For me, I think that he and Tielemans should be our priority at midfield. We must get Yves Bissouma at all costs, Arsenal, and he reposted it. He also reposted, I've been following up on Bissouma, and I think he's the one to replace Partey long term. He's just 25. He reposted that as well. So I just thought this was interesting because, like, this is not the first time that I feel like Bissouma has kind of made little little hints that he might want to come to Arsenal. Not only do I think that like the case on his head is kind of like hurting him a little bit in terms of a move in general, because like the team that wants him the most is like Monaco. So it feels like most of the Premier League teams are kind of like, I'm not sure about him. And we know that he's quality. So it's not about the way that it's not about his quality. It has to be about that case. But like, I'm not sure that Arteta wants this type of player. And we kind of spoke about it before that Arteta, I think, wants more technicians than P&P. And even though I don't think Bissouma can really be reduced down to just P&P, that's how he kind of plays for Brighton. We know that when he played for Lille, he had more about his game than that. And even maybe in these African qualifiers, he's shown that as well. But for 30 million, like if that case was, cleared from him, which I don't know whether it will or not, Bissouma, I would want him at Arsenal. Like, I mean, 30 million like for a player like that is crazy, but like I just thought it was interesting that he was like definitely twerking for Arsenal. It's crazy. I mean, that is like real twerking. um so EK says, I don't think the club has ever been interested in him. It's fan hype. Yeah, I don't think they've actually ever really been interested in him. It's just interesting that it feels like he would want to come to Arsenal. It feels like it. Willie and the Lazy says, it isn't the case being settled next week, as in we'll have a verdict. Yes. Lynn says, I do think that Arteta would go for him this month if the case was cleared. Enzo says the scandal over his head will limit his chances of joining a big 6 club. Funky Bunky says, if he doesn't have the lawsuit, I'll definitely get him. I mean, some people are saying that he's trolling, but like at the same time, like, why wouldn't he want to come to Arsenal? You know, the idea that no good players would ever want to come to Arsenal is just a complete fabrication, based on the players that we brought in the last like 5 seasons. We haven't even been in Champions League, and we've still been able to bring players of this quality. So this whole like he's just trolling you guys is kind of a joke, considering we're probably going to get Tielemans and Gabriel Jesus, and those players are a little bit better, kind of in that same realm. So why would it be trolling? Why wouldn't he want to come to Arsenal? He's playing for Brighton right now. Ismail says, I think you'll find that most players don't end up leaving the country that they're already playing in. That was a bit of an empty statement about players in Italy not leaving their league. I mean, how is it empty, you guys? It just kind of is, like, beyond the odd players here and there. These Italian players don't usually leave. And I get that, like, in the French league, it can be similar in the Spanish league, but we're talking about specifically Italian. So it's not like a dig towards the Italian players or turning a blind eye to the fact that in other leagues they do the same. But like we're talking about an Italian player in an Italian league. I don't think it's like it's any sort of empty statement. It's just kind of is what it is, isn't it? You know, we're not talking about like everybody. We're talking about Italian players. It's just I don't see it as that deep, you guys, to say that. Lynn says, I think it's unfair to be judging him. However, the clubs are not going to buy him at the moment. EK says, I would be happy with Tielemans and Amadou Onana. Looks an interesting player. Did you see him play for Belgium the other day? I have to say, I have to say that like I don't know if I was like super impressed. Like I thought that he was like, you know, like one of those like, you know, the type of player that like maybe Arsene would have went for years ago, you know, the long-legged kind of physical player with some skills. You know, he kind of was a classic like that. But I can't say that I was like particularly impressed by him in that way. But you can let me know if what you think. I think we need a player like this. It doesn't have to be Bissouma. Obviously I'd prefer it be, you know, Bissouma, but if you can get him, then somebody else. Let's see. All right. So moving on from that, Brazil vibes. I just wanted to bring this up as well. Gabriel Martinelli posting a cryptic, you know, story around with Gabriel Jesus. I thought that that was like really cute, you know, like, I don't know, it doesn't mean anything, but it could. It could. And then Gabriel Magalhaes, he did his initiation song for Brazil. I posted the YouTube link in the description box if you guys want to go and watch it. Him and Danilo did it. I thought it was really cute. And so, yeah, I just like following our players on their international endeavors. It's just so cute, like watching them do stuff. Like it's just funny. Like, and then when you see like Tierney turned 25 today. I could like it was just like it felt like a day ago that he was 22. You know, like these players are actually getting old. Oh my gosh. You know, it's like weird, you know, but yeah, it's just nice watching the players like enjoy themselves on international duty, and you know, the likes of Gabriel Magalhaes and little Gabby, like being in the full national team, I think is a big deal as well, because it's like not a joke. That group is not easy to get into. So yeah, all three Gabbies just right there. You know, I love it. But yeah, if you guys get a chance, you guys should watch it. Also, like I reposted just the clip of Gabrielle on my Twitter. So if you guys want to look at it there, I have no clue what the man is saying, like obviously because I don't speak Portuguese, but it was still funny. So yeah. Just what like yeah, they just look like they're having so much fun, which I like. Just don't get injured. Blaze says some players need to be careful, stay motivated, and don't be in scandal because it will destroy your career. Same thing with Bissouma. If he didn't have the allegation scandal, he would come to a top club. Yeah, no, I hear that. You know, I hear that, and like I know we've spoken about this before in terms of like, I take this stuff like very seriously, but like also I like to also make sure that people have been actually charged with something first, than assuming that they've done something, because we've seen in the past that like people get accused of things all the time and they're actually not true. But equally, like if you're charged with something like that, you definitely, your life is ruined. So a lot of players I think need to be a lot more careful about the people that they hang out with and the decisions that they make. You're not, untouchable if you're a footballer or somebody of influence, because sometimes your money can't get you out of certain things. And this isn't like, just be a good person, try to be a good person. And to be honest, like this isn't like a couple of years ago where, if you had a lot of money, you could just get away with anything. With the way that the world has changed, I think for the better, people in even high positions are getting taken down for things that they've done in the dark. So they do need to be careful about who they hang out with and the decisions that they make, especially like when they're not playing and things like that. Cause they do, footballers do a lot of stuff. Like, I don't even have to tell you guys know. And like, it's a fine line between fun and scandal. It really is. So yeah, but I just like to see them like having fun, you know, and not getting arrested. Keenan says, I'm sure Saka is already being tapped up by Champions League clubs. If we don't secure Champions League football this season, we definitely risk losing him. Yeah, I do think that that's definitely true. Like if we don't progress, we will lose him. Um, and that's why, like, although we've re-signed El Neni and Kedia, we know that there's more important extensions that we need to get done, like Bakayo, both Gabbies, and Saliba. And so those need to get done, and those are just as important as bringing in new players. If you don't get Saka on a new deal, if you don't get Gabriel Magalhaes on a new deal. I mean, there's teams like Juventus that are just chomping at the bit to bring in Gabriel. That's how good he is. And I know we don't like Juventus, but it's a good club. So, and that has Champions League. So we just need to be careful and make sure that we get these players signed up as soon as possible. There's 270 of you guys in here. Like and subscribe to the channel. Lynn says, I think that Greenwood case has highlighted the football world even more. I agree. Cray says, I know a bunch of ex-Premier League players who sniff coke. I'm sure. Let's see. I'm so sure. Richard says, to be honest, we need some proper backup for the kid. He's played into the ground and getting kicked all over the country. Yeah, with Saka, it's hard because I'm sure, you know, to bring in somebody that's just as good, if not better than Bukayo Saka, to give him rest, but also keep the levels up, is going to cost a lot. So I'm not sure that that's like really going to be a somewhere where we put a lot of resources into, but like maybe that Marquinhos kid. See, I didn't even believe myself when I said it. That Marquinhos guy or Amari Hutchinson can come in and do a job. I don't know. Simfiwi says, how you feel about the reports that we won't spend a lot, instead we'll bring players back from their loans. I haven't seen the we'll bring players back from their loans bit, but I have seen like, oh well, instead of getting 7 players, we might only see 3 new faces. I have a hard time believing that that's the reality, like because right at the beginning of before the a couple weeks ago, they said that the Europa League, finishing Europa League would not really impact the window. So I don't know how much I believe those reports. I would believe it's probably was never going to be 7 players coming in. That's not normal. And Elliot, Yankee Gunner, made a really good point that like before last summer, a good window would have been like 3 starters, and maybe like a young player also. So maybe like 4 players max. Now like I think Arsenal fans and even me, like I think I've kind of deluded myself into thinking that every window we need to get 6 players or we should get 6 players, and we probably won't. So I don't think it was ever going to be 7, but I don't think it'll just be 3, it'll probably be 4. And if I had to guess, because we've already gotten the backup goalkeeper and Saliba's coming back, I know that that's not a signing, but it will feel like a new signing. And we've already brought in Marquinhos, which is like the young player. Um, I still think we'll get 2 forwards, a midfielder, and a backup left back. The level of those players, I'm not sure. I still believe like it's going to be Tielemans and Gabriel Jesus, and the other 2 are kind of up for debate. Those links could change anytime, but the idea that we would get rid of Lacazette and Aubameyang and Pepe and then only bring in 1 forward and renew Eddie is so stupid. And I just can't even fathom that that's the reality. So, and there's been so many reports that have said like we're looking at wingers or more than 1 forward. So I think the priority is Tielemans and Gabriel Jesus. But the other signings will come in based on who leaves and stuff like that, which is always the reality for Arsenal. Like we have to sell before we buy players all the time. Like that's just the reality. Ify says 4 players is fine, but I prefer 5. I prefer 7. You know what I mean? But yeah, I hear you. I hear you. You guys, I don't know anything about that Austin Trusty thing. I don't actually think that that's like a real thing. Turner and Marquinhos, yes. Trusty, no. She knows football. Thank you so much for your super chat. Really appreciate it. Kim B says the 2 to 3 players quote was about 3 top players and then more on the side. It's gotten so diluted and used to make articles by trash papers like The Sun to create clicks since then. And I hear that. It's like it goes from, okay, we'll get 3 top players and maybe 1 young player to we'll only see 3 signings, maybe. No, like as unambitious as I feel like Arsenal can be at sometimes and how lackluster our windows can be most of the time, I still like, you guys know I err on the side of pessimistic a lot of times. I think we get 2 forwards, a midfielder, and a left back at minimum, 4 players. Most people feel the same way, you know? Let's see. Matt says, hopefully the reports about less money, etc., is a tactic. If we seem like we have more money, we will get charged more. And every window, we play down what we have. We did that last window as well. Like, so I wouldn't worry about it so much. Keenan says, I know Gakpo def feels a lot like Project Youth, but damn, that kid is straight fire. I know it's riskier than buying Gnabry or Richarlison, but Gakpo could truly become world-class in his talent and profile. Yeah, I do think that that's the signing that we go for. I don't think the Gnabry thing happens, but like there's people in the chat saying that he's going to stay at Bayern, which was always, it's better because Bayern will upgrade the contract for Gnabry. So just like how we kind of talked about yesterday, or the day before, that there was always the scenario where Gnabry was using Real Madrid and Arsenal to try to get Bayern to act. And so they may upgrade the contract, or if they don't agree, he could stay and leave for free. So we kind of made up that rumor. And so I don't think I already know that there's going to be some Arsenal fans that are blaming Arsenal because they didn't get Gnabry. We made it up. Gakpo seems more realistic, and for 25 million, which is the quoted price for him, that's exceptional for a player that, if it goes right, could be, like you said, really, really good. So I'm not too worried about the Gnabry thing. I do think that will go for Gakpo. I think that makes the most sense. Blaze says, has a question. Jess, what happened to the rumors for Gakpo? Do you think Arsenal will buy another player to replace Pepe? I just kind of answered that. We're still said to be the front runners for him, but also Pepe has to leave first. I think that's one of those ones that might go to the end of the window. And even their sporting director said that might go to the end of the window, so we'll see what happens with that. Let's see. So you guys, I already kind of said this, and I know there's the want and need to go really, really deep into Arsenal depression sometimes, but there's always money available at the front end of the window to get things done. I don't think all of our signings are based upon sales. Like, that's just not how things work. So, maybe 75 to 100 million have been given, because one thing I do know is that the Cronkies are going to back Arteta. Now, the capacity in which they do that may not be big enough or enough to really make the push that we need, but they're going to back him in some capacity. So, if they give him 75 to 100 million up front, and that's used to get their priority players, that's how we're going to get Gabriel Jesus and Tielemans, maybe even one other player early on in the window. Everything else might be based on sales, or just at least getting rid of the wages of somebody like Nicola Pepe, Bellerin, etc. So I don't think we need to like go deep into, okay, well, we have to sell to buy, so we're not going to bring in any players, and it's always based on sales. Things have been different since KSE have taken over full stop, like in 2018. And so I'm not advocating for them to be good owners. You guys know, if they don't leave, we're never going to get to the top. That's my overarching feeling in my view. But they're going to release some funds early on in the window so we can get at least our priority signings, and then everything beyond that will probably be because of sales. So I wouldn't go into, we're not getting anybody. Like, you know what I mean? We're going to get some players, EK says, watching Wales versus Ukraine, Zinchenko's scouting report. I would love, to get Zinchenko, but I feel like we'll get Hickey instead. It would be great. Like Zinchecko, I think it's more important for us to cover midfield than right back, because with Saliba and Ben White and Tomiyasu and Cedric, that's enough right backs there. But Zinchenko, can cover midfield, which I think is our biggest weakness. So I'd prefer him over Hickey, who can cover right back. High Tech J says, I think we can get to the top with Kroenke, but probability is about 8%. Fair enough. Cray says, at the end of the day, Jess, if you get your hope up for 6 players and we get 3 or 4, you could disappoint yourself. Sometimes it's better to be more on the cautious side. You know what? I do agree, but then I see people saying we're not going to sign any players. We're not going to sign anybody. There's no way we'll sign anybody. Or, we'll only sign, a kid or that or whatever. There's enough smoke and enough reliable reports out there to give you some confidence that we're probably in a good position to sign Tielemans and Gabriel Jesus at the very least. So as much as I get that you don't want to get your hopes up, which I am kind of in that camp, there also has to be some, like, let's be real. We're going to sign somebody, and we'll probably sign good players. Maybe not world class, but good. Let's see. So yeah, you know what I mean? So let's go ahead and end it there, because there's not much else to talk about in regards to Arsenal. We did a little bit of just chat at the end, and of course the big story is Saliba stays, to be continued with that one. But make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel. There's almost 300 of you guys in here, which I really appreciate. I love that you guys support the channel and all of that. So we'll have many more conversations, around this kind of stuff as the season, or as the summer goes on. Probably going to do a show with Deluded Gooner on Tuesday. So I'll keep you guys updated on that. And yeah, share this with a friend. Let me know what you guys thought in the comment section. Make sure you vote on the community poll, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye, guys.